Welcome to another episode of I Am Maria podcast, a space where we explore the impact stories that inspire us to be who we are today, showing how our personal decisions and tools shape our lives. My guest today is Emily, who found herself stuck, working hard, making money, but not actually building a generational wealth. She saw others building homes and investing while she was just clocking in hours at work. That's when she realized something had to change. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about her journey from feeling stuck to becoming financially empowered. We'll discuss what is really taking to start investing and why so many people delay from their financial dreams and the mindset shifts that you need to have and to take in life. So if you have ever felt like you're just working for a paycheck and not truly securing your future, this episode is for you. So Emily, thank you so much for being here. And my first question to you, because that's a way for us to get to know you, is who are you? Who is Emily?
That's a great question. I'm so happy to be here on this podcast. And it's taken me a while to really figure out who I am, but I think throughout the years I've figured out I'm a very creative soul. I love to help people. I love to collaborate. But at the end of the day, I am somebody who wants to be creating things. And I my background is actually in engineering, but throughout my time as an engineer, I didn't really feel like that's what my soul was calling me to do.
I love that. And we're going to start getting into those habits, but really, let's dig into important decisions right now, right? Because important decisions lead us into who we are today, into that person that we are today. So it's very difficult for me to ask for one important decision, but maybe three could help for you to answer. So, Emily, what are those three most important decisions that have led you to the person you are today?
Yeah, I think the three most important things, one that I can think of is really while I was working full time, I started to realize I wanted to invest in real estate. So that was a really pivotal moment in my life where I was like, I know I want to be doing something outside of my normal working hours to invest in my future. So that was one of the most important decisions of my life. And I started small and I worked up to making that a big part of my life. And then after, that was like one kind of part of my life and one big decision that I made. And then even from there, I realized I needed to be making more money so that I could invest. So I started freelancing on the side. So I made that decision to set up a profile and start doing like side hustles so that I could make money to invest to expand my opportunities essentially. And then I think my third big decision, which is kind of continuous throughout my life, is that I don't give up. Even when things get really, really hard, I tell myself, and this is a continual decision, but I've made it so many times where I'm like, wow, this is really hard. I'm really tired. I could not be doing any of this and I would be okay. But that decision to keep showing up every day, even if I don't succeed every day, just keep showing up. And that decision has snowballed in my life so much and really gotten me to where I am today.
I love that. And yeah, it's really about decisions and it depends on the decision you have, but I love that you commit and you take that decision every day and it's not easy. So part of I Am Maria podcast is to discover that toolbox that helps you and is there with you. So digging a little deeper into these resource or this decision that you take every day, or yeah, in your day-to-day life. What is that toolbox that helps Emily?
Yeah, I think one, surrounding myself with a community, that's like a tool that I use every day. Finding people who understand me and my goals and have the same or similar goals, I think is a place that I draw a source of power from. And I've worked really hard over the years to find those people, be in those groups, lean on them because I don't have to do it all alone. So, I mean, for me, a specific example is I'm part of a women's real estate community in St. Louis, and meet with them monthly, and I have friends within that group that I lean on when I'm faced with a difficult decision or I'm faced with some sort of challenge. That's a tool that I use as a source of power for myself to say, "Hey, I need help. Has anybody experienced this same thing?" Because we're really just, you are as good as the people that you surround yourself with. So finding those people and leaning on them because you don't really have to do things alone in life. So that's definitely a major tool that I've used in my own life. I think other tools that I've used are just technology in general. I use a lot of technology to help enhance my life, whether that's productivity tools, or I'm obviously a big proponent of Smartsheet in my professional life and, and my personal life. I use it for growing my own real estate businesses. So I've found a tool that makes sense to me and figured out how to really enhance and make my life more efficient so I have more time for other things. And I think those tools could be different depending on what field you're in, but there's so much technology out there that we can be leveraging to save us time, save us energy. So I think that that's been huge in my own life. So I don't know if I think those are my two biggest tools, honestly. Like, my community is like number one, because community is a collection of shared knowledge, right?
Mm.
So that's been a huge tool, and then just, like, my Smartsheet tools that I'm using and also have built a business with as well. So
I love that. It's work smart, not hard, right? So,
exactly.
and that really takes a strong mindset, Emily, because it's balancing your ambition and kind of, in a way, your mental health. Because I love how you're saying building a community. That is a great way to share ideas. I love talking to people, like the same as the person who thinks as me, but also the one that I know who thinks differently, because that's just going to help to flow the different perceptions in life. But sometimes that could also feel overwhelming, right? um, and I know that you are really keen into like be well and, in a way, mental health or managing your emotions and the challenges, and how is that you're investing that energy. So how do you work in these scenarios, especially when things don't go as planned?
I think I give myself a lot of grace. I don't have to be perfect. I'm not necessarily even a perfectionist, I will say, but giving yourself grace. And I just saw a video online that somebody was like, maybe you just keep raising the bar on yourself. That's why you don't feel like you're good enough because you just keep raising that bar higher and higher and higher. And so if I struggle with feeling like, man, am I doing enough? Am I investing my time in the right places? Because a lot of times you can feel like you're on a hamster wheel. And is that really the best use of my time for my future self in 5 to 10 years? So when I think through those things, I try to just realize, look, I just keep raising the bar on myself. That's where I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, maybe because I do that. But you got to give yourself some grace and realize that if you see your goal and you have a goal and you're working towards it, you're already on the right track, probably. Because I think a lot of people kind of float through life and they're letting life happen to them. But if you have a goal and you're working towards it, it doesn't have to be perfect. That line's not going to be a straight. You're going to go up and down and all, but eventually you're going to get there. So I think giving yourself grace. If you are working towards something, you are already on the right track. And that's kind of how mentally I've had to balance it. So I'm like, okay, I'm pushing myself every day. So whether or not I'm perfect, I'm still showing up and I'm still going to get there.
I love that. And there's breaking points when, you decide that was it. That was a moment that you needed it to, change, to take a leap.
Yeah.
And I know there was a breaking free from the corporate America war when were working and you kind of realized that, despite of working hard, you kind of were like giving or leaving on your 20% productive and really on the long term, as you just said, I love that you think on 10 years ahead. That's kind of how I build my goals as well. Today, this week, a month, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. So I know you were working on corporate America and suddenly you change and you kind of started to follow your dreams. So I want to know, what was that breaking moment that made you take a leap from corporate America into real estate and design world?
Yeah. So I worked in corporate America for 7 years. And I would say about 2 years in, I actually ended up meeting my husband in at work. And I was thankfully, I had a pretty good job. I liked who I was working with. I even liked what I was doing. It was fun to me. But I saw our future. I saw, like, in 10 years, am I still going to be doing this? And am I still going to be challenged? And am I still going to be growing as a person? And then my husband was also working for the same company, and his job was a lot harder than mine. He was working shift work, he was working overnights. We were so busy with work that we didn't go to the doctor. We didn't, get our hair cut. Like, we just didn't have the time or energy to do just the basic things to feel good. And I was like, wow, we've only been doing this for a few years and I'm already feeling kind of burnt out. I don't feel like I have energy to do creative things. At the end of the day, I just want to go home. I want to watch TV and then I want to go to bed because it was just zapping all the energy out of me. So I would say about 2 years into working my job, I realized, like, this is not sustainable for our health, our physical health, our mental health, our relationship. And especially seeing him because he was working so hard, 12, 14-hour shifts. And that's what was kind of the breaking point for me. I was like, this is not sustainable. I am not, at the end of the day, I'm not feeling that happy. Like, I'm having fun at work and stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm not investing in my future. I'm living for the paycheck day to day. So that's kind of when I had that realization of I want more. And so what I did from there was I started just learning. I started learning about real estate and I started following people on social media. I started running the numbers myself just to practice and, like, figure out, how does this math work? How does this whole real estate thing work? And about, I think, 2 or 3 years into working in corporate America, I was saving money at the time, learning as much as I could. And that's when I made my first investment. And that kind of opened my eyes, right? Now I have a physical asset. I flipped it. I did a bunch of, like, updates to and renovated that property. And now I've just given myself a $50,000 increase in because I added equity to my property. So it was
Mm.
a light bulb moment where, one, I am getting rent now from this property. I was getting about $500 a month after I paid off all my expenses. So that was a 5% raise, so to speak. I just gave myself that raise. So
Right.
I was plus, right, plus the property, plus the equity.
Mhm.
And that was the light bulb moment where I can control my life, actually. Like, oh, maybe I didn't get a raise at work, or maybe I got like a 1% raise or something. Well, I'm not going to feel bad about that because now I can control, through real estate, giving myself a raise when I feel like it. So I think that empowerment and just doing it one time, and I wouldn't even say my first property was, I didn't do a good job. Let's just say that because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was learning on the
First.
fly. Exactly. I was learning on the fly as I was doing it, and it wasn't perfect, and it didn't need to be perfect, but it showed me what was possible. And so Through that, that's when I really was all in on real estate. I was like, okay, this has shown me that if I just keep investing in real estate, that I can eventually have opportunities, have different options. Whether that was leaving my job or doing something else, eventually I did leave my job, but it gave me the option, and that's what I'm really big on, is just giving myself as many options as I possibly can. So,
Love it because it's really, yeah, how you look forward, but how you plan. Because as I'm understanding, you play with the numbers first, and then you bought the house, and you felt proud about what you were doing, and you just continue. Because shifting to, being on a paycheck and then really working on your dreams and really deciding how is that's gonna go, really, right? But then in a way, you believe that people don't really buy or build their dream homes when they're under 20th, under 20th, under 30th, but really getting closer to the 40th. And that's kind of my mindset too, because I'm like, I'm going to buy another property. And how can people adjust their financial expectations to, I'm living happy and I know I'm going to get this paycheck every week versus I need to get out there, but probably you're going to have more time for yourself, for living and enjoying life.
I'm a big proponent of delayed gratification. So that's kind of how I live my life. I'm going to take the time now while I'm young. Personally, I don't have any kids either. And I knew that going into this. When I have kids, I want to have more time.
Mhm.
So right now, while I don't have as many responsibilities and my expenses are a little bit lower, I'm going to do all of these things and invest my time now so that later it'll pay off for me. So I definitely think the way that I've lived my life, I haven't necessarily, they also say like keeping up with the Joneses, right? I haven't been keeping up with the Joneses. I haven't been like buying the newest car. I haven't been buying the biggest house. I haven't been like buying brand new clothes every season or something. And I'm very happy with that because I'm able to take a day off midweek if I want to. I'm able
Mm.
to, like go to the coffee shop whenever I want and just get a cup of coffee. I'm able to, like, I went to Italy last year for a month and I worked from Italy. And I didn't have to ask anybody if I could do that. And that's because I've cultivated my life in a way where I can have more control over it. And I paid that, I I invested that time earlier on in my life so that now I can do that now. Because on the weekends, a few years ago, I was working on my real estate. I would go to the property and I'd work on it with my husband. I'd be painting things, I'd be cleaning dirty things, making the property better. And I was doing that on the weekends for years. And we had fun doing it. Like we'd have our family come and we'd get lunch afterwards. We were still enjoying our life and we still took vacations and we still did all that. But we invested more time in our future, I would say, than maybe the typical person who's just kind of has a normal job and then they have their normal 401k and whatnot. But we were investing in like physical assets and things that were going to cash flow later in life.
In a way, like living small while you're thinking big. Um,
Exactly.
because it's a way of how you prioritize your investment over your personal comfort. And I understand that you live with your husband in an 800 square foot apartment, but in the own building that you guys own. And that's for me is like, whoa, tell me more. Let me know how is that you decide, on prioritizing your investment. But that, tell me really, Emily, how is that experience like?
Yeah, it's been one of the best things we've ever done. Hands down, I love it. Um, we bought this fourplex, so there's 4 units. There's 4 one-bedroom apartments in this building, and we bought it as a primary residence back in like 2021 or 2022. And what we've done is we've only really renovated one other unit, but by buying this building and living in one apartment, the people in this building pay for the mortgage and all the expenses. So essentially, we are living for free in this building because the cost of the other units pay for all of the expenses. And like I kind of keep saying, it gives us options. When we went to Italy for a month, we weren't like, oh, shoot, we're going to be paying for a mortgage, plus we're going to be paying for
Mm,
lodging in Italy.
yeah.
And we can make those choices and be flexible with our location because we're essentially like house hacking is kind of what the
Nice.
real estate folks call it, where you live in a property, maybe in one of the units, and the other units pay for it. So it's given us a ton of flexibility. And yeah, the thing is, we actually used to live in a 4-bedroom house. We lived in a 4-bedroom house and we moved into this unit. But we don't necessarily see it as we're living small or whatever because our life is so flexible. And it's just, you got to weigh the scales and understand like what's important to you. You want to live comfortably still. You don't want to like be struggling. And we've made a very comfortable place for ourselves. But at the end of the day, if you want that flexibility, are there things in your
Mm,
life where you can kind of tip the scales a little bit to give you that flexibility that you want? And really, like you said, working smarter, not harder. I'm actually able to work not as hard because I don't have to worry about paying for the mortgage. Other people are already paying for it. So, I think just that mindset shift has really set us free.
I love that because, I'm like, I'm rethinking my life right now, Emily, with this episode because I love real estate too. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that do. And the audience that will be listening to these podcasts is because maybe they're afraid of taking that step, right? And I want to know what's one thing that you wish more people understood about real estate and financial independence.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I definitely think if you're gonna try to change your mindset, this is the book to read is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That is what unlocked my brain to this whole thing because it's how are you using assets to pay for your liabilities. And it's really just, and in real estate terms, how are you going to use like an asset like a home to pay for your expenses? So for me, before I'm growing my list of expenses, before I expand my lifestyle, because I'm not always going to live in an 800 square foot apartment, but before I'm expanding my expenses, I'm thinking about what assets am I going to have that are going to pay for those things that
Mm,
I want in the future? Before I get a new car, say I want to get a brand new car, I'm going to buy a property that's going to pay for that car.
right.
So I think it's just understanding like don't don't dig yourself into a hole of like financial burden and
Mm,
expense. First, think about how you can generate that income either passively or through other means. Because at the end of the day, if you're building yourself into a hole and you buy if you have an expensive lifestyle, essentially, you're going to be chained to your job because you're going to have
mm,
to pay for that. So to give yourself options, figure out other ways to generate income.
mm,
Yeah.
nice. And I'm sure you have taken a lot of big risks, starting from deciding to jump
Yeah.
into real estate journey, right? So, what is the biggest risk you ever took, and how did it pay it off or not?
I think, oh, that's a great question. I think the biggest risk that I took was I bought a home sight unseen. And I actually had it under contract before I told my husband about it. Because at the time he was working nights. So I didn't really see him, but I was looking at the market and at the time it's still very competitive. So if you see something, you have to jump on it.
Mhm.
And I'm generally kind of a risk taker. So I saw a property, I ran the numbers, I felt super confident in it. I had a really good real estate agent because at the time I was living in upstate New York. So
Okay.
this property was in St. Louis. And so I had the agent go and I said, "What do you think? Would you buy it?" And she was like, "Yeah, this is a great deal." And so I was like, "Let's put it under contract." I didn't put eyes on it, but I trusted her and I had trust in her and I ran the numbers myself. So my husband gets back from work the next morning and I was like, "Hey,
I
I
bought a
have
house.
a yeah, I have a property under contract." I was like, "Do you remember? Like, I kind of think I showed it to you." And he was like, "No." But I had to take that risk
Yeah.
so that I could get that opportunity. And thankfully, I had the skills. That wasn't my first property
Mm.
that I bought. So I had the skill set to run the numbers and I had the relationship to trust that person who did see it. And it ended up paying off beautifully. It's the property that cash flows the best.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we make like $1,000 a month just on this one little tiny two-bedroom house. And thankfully my husband is just knows how I am. So he was just happy. He was just like, "Wow, like, yeah, you go, girl," like because he trusts me too. So it ended up I took the risk and it ended up really turning out for the best for us because I took that leap.
That's awesome. Congrats. Go, Emily. So, Emily, I love that you're kind of giving us a class on real estate here. So I want to learn, and I have more questions. So I want to know what's a common misconception people have about making money through real estate.
I think a common misconception is that you need a lot of properties. I don't think you need a lot. You don't need 100 properties to make good income from real estate. It definitely different avenues you can go, but I have gone the route of Airbnb or furnished rentals, and you can make a lot more money every month through higher end designed and furnished rentals. So I think a common misconception is that you need a lot of properties to make a lot of money. But really, my mindset has been less is more. I don't want a lot, I just want a lot of really good properties. So,
Nice. And what will you say to someone just starting on how will you suggest structuring their finances to prepare for their first investment?
yeah, I mean, I personally think the lowest risk investment you could do is to live in a property. Even if you lived in a different property every 2 years, and it doesn't have to be the best deal out there, but if you can just even live in a property and move every 2 years, obviously that's easier for some people than others, especially if you have, like, a big family, so you gotta understand the different strategies out there that might work for you, but definitely the lowest risk is if you can live in a property and just sit on it and then move every few years, you will accumulate so much wealth because you can put down such a small amount of money, 3.5 to 5% down on a property if you're living in it as your primary residence versus if you get an investment loan that's 20%. So you're paying much more. But if you can just slowly over time make a conscious decision to live in a property, then that's really the lowest risk you with it. And you're probably going to get a better deal. You won't need a ton of money because you can just do like the 3.5 to 5% and just slowly over time build up assets.
Nice, very nice. I know the role of partnership, it's huge, you know.
Yeah.
How has working with your husband influenced your business decision? How do you think partnership makes investing easier or harder?
Yeah, I think it's really good for me because I am a risk taker, like I said. So I would have probably He's not a risk taker. He's very conservative, much more than I am. So we really balance each other out because I'm like, we should buy this. I don't care, how much it takes. We should get this one. He's like, "Ah, let's make sure, does this really make sense? And is it aligned with our goals?" So I think that aspect, if you can find somebody that has a different skill set than you, like maybe you're not the numbers person. Like in our relationship, I like to crunch the numbers. And my husband, he can and he checks my work basically, but he doesn't like to just be crunching numbers all the time. I like to do that. So if you can find somebody like a partner that maybe has a different skill set than you and is kind of filling in some gaps, I think that can help. Obviously, at the end of the day, creating a partnership with someone investing in a property has legal implications. So you do have to be careful and make sure that your long-term and short-term goals are aligned with whoever you partner with and that
Hmm.
you have a really solid agreement, like written agreement between you two, and a lawyer can help you draft that up. But to me, I think having a partner has just helped me because I'm not making all the decisions by myself. I have somebody to kind of double check my logic, and you can kind of lean on each other a little bit.
Nice. And I love that you said, you really talk about partnership as yes, your husband and wife, but it's partnership as a company.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that whatever you do with your family, with a friend or whoever, you need a contract because you never know. Right now you're talking
Right.
about today, but you don't know on the long term, how to go. And I'm gonna start asking different questions as we get close to the end of the episode. No yet, but I'm gonna start shifting into topics, and this is gonna be the last question for real estate, and probably we're gonna go into one more for finance, and
Okay.
then more into Emily again.
Okay.
I know real estate market is constantly changing. We know that. Sometimes it's a year, sometimes a month. It's like every day. And how do you adapt your your strategies? These things are shifting unexpectedly, and we had that with COVID, and we had that probably right now, and we are gonna, keep having it.
Yeah, I think for me, the way that I've known to shift the strategy and maybe shift my sales in a different direction is just through the education that I've built up and running the numbers. If you're running the numbers and the numbers no longer make sense, you have to change. And I definitely, with Airbnb specifically, like one of the investments that we do, that is shifting as well. Like there's new regulations coming into effect, there's new taxes, ordinances, and whatnot. So we've had to maybe shift our sales a little bit and that strategic decision, like, is this financially still making sense? So to me, if you like about tools in your for me, one of them is, my understanding and math behind how I calculate my real estate transactions. And so I've used that as a tool to maybe change directions when the numbers are no longer making sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about numbers in a way. And you
Yeah.
are a lady that loves numbers and that is a risk taker. I love that, your mindset is like, we need to change, we need to adapt. And I don't know if you have ever trapped, but there's many people that sometimes they feel like that, in jobs that provide stability, or they're just not ready, they're afraid. So what is the first step someone should take if they want to start building wealth, but they're scared to take the risk?
Yeah, I think there's so much real estate content out there. A big channel is the Bigger Pockets channel, and they have a wealth of knowledge, videos, books, all kinds of resources that I personally used when I was first starting out in real estate. So even if you have no money to invest, just start learning.
Mm,
That's something that you can control. And then another thing too is just start tracking your budget. How much money are you spending? Can you start saving if you maybe make some changes in your lifestyle? So I think those are like two steps that you can take today if you want to start on the track towards real estate.
nice. Nice, very nice. And we talked so much about the present, the future, but not like the past. And I don't like to get into the past, but like it's always nice to, look back and maybe ask yourself if you would change anything. How is Emily feeling today? Looking back, will you change anything at all?
Yeah, I think honestly, the thing that I would change is I wish I would have been on social media helping other people earlier. Like, that's truly, I think, where my heart kind of lies is like, how could I have been helping people like earlier in my journey? I was kind of just focused on like what's happening with me,
Mm.
but sharing like my struggles and my story, I wish I would have done it like much sooner because I think I could have impacted other people and I could have been in a slightly different place today had I done that. So I think that's one thing that I would definitely change.
I love that. And you have an Instagram, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Have a name, you want to share it?
Yes, it's Ugly House Love.
Hey, you're gonna love it. Uh, Emily really takes into the process of how she's doing things. I'm a fan. I love your content and I love your way. It's really how you put things together. Looks really like a magazine. I love it. So,
Thank you.
Emily, what would you like people listening to this episode to take away?
I think that the biggest thing that you can take away and something that I've done throughout my life is just keep going. Like, if you have a goal and you're working towards your goal, do not give up. Just keep showing up every day, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like you're making progress, because eventually that is going to snowball and you're going to wake up in a few years and be in a completely different place. And I know this from my own personal experience when I felt like I was not making any progress. We were working so hard, and I just felt like nothing was changing. But then one day I woke up and my whole life was really different, honestly. So, no matter what goal you're working towards, just keep going, keep the time and the effort. It will pay off.
It will. It will. Emily, thank you so much again for being here, for being open to tell your story through I Am Maria podcast. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I am sure that it will inspire and motivate, and maybe somebody will write and will let us know that they took that risk because they heard this episode. So thanks again. Subscribe, comment, like, and share it with your friends. This is Emily's story. What is yours? Thanks again for being in I Am Maria podcast. And I love that you're spending time with us. Thanks again.